cameras above us. Well, the thing's gonna we are now live. Oh my gosh, we're live.
And we're live.
Instagram, hello. Welcome back to another Horological Happy Hour here at EWC. I'm Justin.
I'm Rob.
Today we are talking about trends. I don't know, Rob. What can we say about trends,
as
man?
I said on our little promo earlier, the watch market is absolutely filled with trends. We've seen big watches come in. We've seen big watches go out. We've seen they're kind of coming back. I feel like a little bit.
Sorry, I'm struggling with my. What the heck? What is this opener? This is. It's
garbage. The same one every week. It is garbage. It's broken. Like totally it should be broken. Flat, but it's way outside. So as I was saying, we've seen the size thing kind of come and go. We've seen. Did you get it?
I just broke the bottle. Excuse me, I'll be right back. I'm just covered in potentially blood and beer.
Does this count as technical difficulties?
I think so.
You might want to grab a glass while you're going.
I'm going to grab a glass.
Turn your mic off.
I'm going to turn my mic. I'll leave my mic here. Actually, you know what? You can listen to me as I walk to the kitchen. I'll be right back.
All right. Justin will be right back. So we've also talked about, we've seen the steel sport watch thing explode, especially, over 2021 and things like that. We have seen the dress watch thing take some interesting turns, because for a while there, everybody was trading their complicated Pateks, their complicated Longas, and the mysterious hand. So we've seen people trade their complicated pieces and their dress pieces for steel sport watches, which to me was amazing for a while, but I feel like now we're in that territory and that's just where we live. We have seen people paying more for less complicated watches, which is kind of interesting. That kind of goes hand in hand with the steel thing. And we've been seeing recently a lot of the vintage versus modern, which has been really interesting as well.
I don't want to blame you for what happened, but I sit one time on the left side of the table and everything falls apart.
Mine open.
I'm going to blame the bottle. What did you say? What were you saying while I was gone?
I just talked about what we're going to talk about.
Okay. Right.
They are getting our header set up.
Nice.
So we don't have a screen yet. So if you are commenting, I don't know if you can jump in there.
Let me pull it up.
But if you're commenting and have anything to say, please do, because we are very interested in your takes and opinions here. One of the things we asked when we were getting set up is, do you care about the trends? Are you looking at the fact that a lot of celebrities are now going for small watches and small vintage watches? I feel like we're seeing, I don't know why, my feed is filled with like Cartier these days. Feed is filled with small vintage Cartier on a like astounding level.
Well, I mean, I think so. I don't know. Again, I don't know what you were talking about while I was trying to make sure that I didn't have any shards of glass in my hand or anything. But we have talked about this a lot, where it seems that the watch industry was, diameters on cases were getting larger and larger and larger for no good reason, and finally, over the past couple of years, we've started to see that moderate, and sizes are coming back down to a more manageable level. But I also think, kind of in relation to what you're saying about Cartier, what we were saying about Breguet last week, and some other more classic pieces in a more manageable 36 to 39, 40 millimeter case, they're available at a super, desirable or just a great price point. If I can get into something that might be, a little smaller than other people's, taste or what is kind of the, the prevailing norm in the market, that's really going to draw some people in, and then it'll snowball, and all of a sudden it'll get more and more, more and more.
That's an interesting kind of take on it. I wouldn't have necessarily thought of it as stemming from that angle. So we have a lot of watches here on the table again, because we tried to kind of grab everything we could. So if we're doing the size thing, maybe we should start with everybody's favorite big watch brand.
Everybody's or your favorite big watch brand, buddy?
I might be slightly partial,
all right.
as we have said. So Panerai was one of the watches that I really got into when I first kind of discovered high-end watches. And this would have been, I guess, 2007, somewhere in there is when I started kind of down the rabbit hole. It was actually an orange bezeled Planet Ocean that I saw at the duty free in JFK that like caught my eye, and I was like, wow, that's very cool. Started looking at Omega, and because at the time the only people who advertised were like Tag Heuer and Rolex, and that was really kind of all I knew. I didn't even know who Omega was at the time, and got into that, and then that led me down other rabbit holes, and I really landed hard on Panerai, and I just thought it was a very, very interesting design. It was very cool. I know there's a lot of debate about the history behind it and all of that kind of things and things the brand says and whatever. And at the end of the day, you know, people are going to try to sell their product, and that's fine. For me, I like what it is. I like that there is some history there. It was built for a purpose. I think all that's really cool. So if we go to the old school Panerais, a lot of them were of this style. And this one is obviously kind of a unique one. This is the edition they did for the Florence boutique, and this has a fully engraved case. I believe it's all hand engraved.
It's pretty cool, actually.
And it is very cool. The movement's got some really interesting engraving. This is a very special, very unique Panerai. But the reason we pulled this is that this is 47 millimeters.
Yeah.
And this lines up with their historic series. Because, and I've seen some of those original ones from the 40s, and they are just as massive as you think.
They're absurd.
But the idea was that you were diving, and you needed to rely on this to save your life. So you wanted visibility, right? You wanted to be able to read the watch and see it and know, no matter how dark and murky and gross it was under the water, that you could read it. So this is a 47 mil Panerai. For anybody who's wondering, my wrist is just over 7 inches. It's like 7 1/4.
Here.
And it's not bad.
For reference,
I could do it
on a small wrist. Hold on, let me get in there with that.
Can I do it, people of Instagram?
Well, I mean, you're doing it, so. And
Go ahead.
You lost the overhead cam, David. You're killing me. Where are we here?
Lean in. Lean in.
I mean, I have a 6.5 inch wrist.
And it's still not that bad. It's still doable.
I could never wear this. Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous.
Show the thickness. Tilt for us. No,
this way.
Turn it down.
What, like that? I don't know what the hell you're doing to me here. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Like that.
It's like, it's ridiculous.
There
Look
is
how tall
some,
that is.
There's
insane.
some thickness there. But it's not bad. I like the historical nature of these ones because they look like the old ones.
I like the design for sure.
The domed sapphire crystal is like one of the best features of this watch. It's very, very cool. But now Panerai has started listening, and they've started moving in this direction. This is the new Luminor Quarenta, which is the 40 millimeter version.
Yep.
And in this case, we have it in this very cool kind of military green, which makes sense. So you still get the crown guard. You still get the basically the same shape to the case, but in a smaller format. And what I really like, they did a 40 mil Luminor probably about 20 years ago or something, back in the early 2000s, when Panerai was the hottest ticket in town. Couldn't get him to save his life.
That was the one with the micro rotor, wasn't it?
No, they were just regular automatics.
Okay.
They were too thick because of that. And the proportions were all wrong. The dials weren't well proportioned, and they felt like little baby Panerais, and they just didn't work. I don't like any of them.
Yes.
This, to me, is killer.
It's different.
Like, I would totally wear this. And so, for me, I think the fact that they have embraced the small watch trend and gone for this. We actually even have a 38 right now in the store. I don't think it's been listed yet.
Which is technically a ladies' Panerai.
You know what though? Those lines to me are like they're becoming so blurred because that's actually a trend we didn't think about.
I think that's actually another trend that we will see in the coming year. It's brands are no longer going to market different pieces to men than they do to women.
Right.
There's no longer going to be the women's whatever, insert watch model, and the men's model. It's just going to be, these are our models.
Yeah.
And because, we've talked about it a million times. You'll see a woman walking down the street with a Daytona on. You're like, that looks awesome. Why wouldn't a woman buy that?
Right.
Why would she buy a 28 millimeter?
Even there's that photo of Cameron Diaz. Who is it? Wearing a deep sea?
Oh, I think that's Jennifer Aniston, isn't it?
No. I don't know.
Whatever.
Doesn't matter. A very, very famous female actor wearing a deep sea, which is like a big, chonky Rolex. and it looks great. She wore it kind of loose like a bracelet, and it looks phenomenal. It's either like her or Gwyneth Paltrow or somebody like that. Somebody blonde and lanky.
That really narrows it down.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, that's why it's hard. But I appreciate Panerai going this way. And I think my question to the Instagram community would be, do you think we're sitting in this middle ground now? Are we going to mostly be seeing watches that are, like you said, kind of in that 40-ish, maybe 38 to 40? Is small the way to go? Or I think now that small is in, people are going back here.
I don't
people are going back to 47, back to big pilots.
The pendulum has not swung all the way to small watches yet. It's still on the way from larger to smaller.
But people want to be contrarian.
Yeah, have you met
me? It's right.
That's my whole thing.
So it's just like in the world, like you think about tattoos, and for a while there, to have a tattoo was like, oh, you're edgy, and like, oh, you're dangerous or something. And now it's like,
dangerous.
There's that Instagram thing where it's like you have a tattoo sleeve, and it means you make a killer.
Your tramp stamp doesn't make you dangerous, my friend.
But like you have tattoos, and now it's almost like it's more counterculture to be blank, to not have tattoos,
to be straight edge is now
to be straight edge, is like the counterculture, and I think. I really think we're going to start seeing that, where we're going to see people say, everybody's doing these small watches, everybody's going vintage and Cartier and whatever. I am going 47 mil Panerai, 47 mil Big Pilot.
I think you're just projecting, buddy. I think you're just trying to justify a decision that you recently made when it comes to Panerai.
But you can appreciate the range.
No, I think you can
appreciate
you have a
the
point.
range and enjoy everything.
You have a point. Again, like it's a moving target when it comes to trends in the watch world.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think right now of a brand or brands that I think are ahead of the rest of the industry or are normally ahead of everybody else. Nothing is springing to mind right now, but there definitely are. There are certain brands that jump on, certain, trends, I guess, before the rest of the industry does. They seem to be, I mean, I guess you could even say Bulgari with the Octa, because
that came out before the whole everybody jumped into the integrated sport watch thing, right? Like that Octa Finissimo kind of hit before that.
All the modern ones came out, beyond the AP, the Royal Oak, the Nautilus.
Yeah, it's tough too because if you think about we could go here next if you want the vintage versus the modern, right? Because there's a lot of that playing to the vintage and the heritage of the brand. And then there's also brands that are trying to push it as far into the modern territory as they can. And some are doing it simultaneously.
Yeah. And we talked about this last week where I'm getting tired of vintage inspired pieces and just kind of retreads of old designs, and I can't fault any one brand, whether it's Zenith or even Patek for, to a certain degree.
I feel like we should go there now.
Yeah, there you go. Go to the overhead.
You've made a really natural segue there for these guys.
But again, so I can't fault Zenith for going back to the A386 time and time and time again because it's an incredible design. It's an iconic design. It's burned in any watch collector's brain.
What is the A386, Justin? Would you like to give a little background on that?
So 1969, the first El Primero chronograph, automatic chronograph movement, that tricolor dial, just a very, again, an iconic design that Zenith has been kind of, I don't want to say beating for the past 50 years, but,
It's their Royal Oak.
It's their Royal Oak.
100%. It's their Royal Oak. It's their Speedmaster. Yeah, I mean, this watch historically is super important. Not this one because this is a modern recreation, but the A386 is a very important watch from a historical standpoint.
Of course.
And it, I think it also has a style that's not dissimilar to a Daytona or something like that, where it has that kind of staying power. This might be one of the super fast ones.
That one's not, I don't think.
Is this a regular one?
That's just
No, it's fast.
No, that's the fast one.
It's fast. It's super fast. Yeah. So this is actually interesting. I like that. Andres mentioning the Tag Heuer with its 2447 reinterpretations. The 2447 is the most famous Carrera, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. When you imagine a Carrera, That's what you're imagining. Yeah.
A vintage Carrera.
That's the
Those
image
were
that
the
you have in your
best
head.
ones.
They were.
And they have done some really nice re-editions of that. So this is very cool because this is like so close to the real deal. And I actually really appreciate that. I think it's very cool that if you wanted a vintage one of these, it would be really difficult to find one that's in good condition and works well, and you'd pay a lot of money for it. And these are very accessible.
They are. Yeah. I mean, that I'll look it up right now.
Even down to the finish on the case, it's like the real deal.
Yeah, I think it's a little thicker.
You get a lot of watchmaking. You do get a display back. You get better water resistance, all those kind of things. But super cool. This actually, with the super fast movement in here, looks even a little bit more interesting than your standard El Primero, which is cool. So then,
yeah, I mean that's 8250, so super accessible.
so there you go. Show comment.
Nope, I don't think so. I can check.
Oh, were you telling me to be in the middle?
Saying stay around the center.
Got it. Stay in the middle, getting directions. So then, Zenith at the moment has been relying on this series a lot, which is the Defy, and they redid the Defy 5 years ago.
Might have been a
6 years
little,
ago?
yeah, a little
Something
longer
like
than that at this point, yeah.
Because the Defys that were made in the early 2000s were really not good.
No.
They had kind of drifted away from their heritage and from what made them Zenith. And many people could look at what I'm holding in my hand and be like, well, how is this any different? And this is obviously, we tried to get the most extreme example we could. So we have this one here with a white ceramic case, a white strap with all of this crazy gradient
the rainbow stitching, yeah.
We have the rainbow on the dial, and we have the super fast movement. I have to make sure I've wound this in both directions because this watch has two barrels, one for the chronograph and one for the watch. I believe this way is the chrono, this way is the watch. So when I turn this guy on, that's fast.
Yeah.
That's bananas. And I believe that's a 1/10 of a second. Yeah, because you have the 100 at the top here. So this is for measuring, that 1/10 of a second range as it spins around. And there's actually two escapements on this too. This is like a technological marvel for
there's a ton,
13, 14K.
There's a ton going on for 13K essentially. White ceramic, obviously it's an incredibly distinctive, not subtle piece. But I kind of look at this as almost like an AP overseas a little bit, at a more accessible price point, but honestly with a more interesting movement.
Well, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%. This is their offshore or their, this is the hyper modern kind of thing. This is the, hey, I really like what Richard Mill's doing. How this watch looks on hand, let me put it on my wrist.
But so while Rob's doing that, Zenith is I think the right brand to talk about when we talk about hoping in 2024 that brands move away from just, reusing vintage designs and trying to do something a little more interesting because, Zenith has, there you go, show that bad boy off on the wrist.
Well,
there you go.
bam.
Actually looks really good. Not with a suit, but it looks very good.
But it also, it's big.
It is.
But it's not overwhelming. And this is similar to me to the Panerai where it actually fits well. They've done enough kind of R&D on this here where it sits really well on the wrist and it's comfortable to wear.
Yeah.
You could wear this.
No lugs, yeah.
No
exactly.
lugs.
Right.
Good point.
Right.
Yeah, so it comes straight down on the
much
side.
nicer.
So even though it's almost to the actual edges of my wrist, it doesn't look like that.
But anyway, so back to my point, so you have, I think Zenith is probably one of the brands that I think is doing the best job of balancing being true and paying tribute to the pieces that got it where it is, while also still pushing forward. And here you go. I mean, show off this guy, which I think is a perfect blend of the two, honestly. It's got vintage inspiration and vintage design cues, but it's in a modern case with a modern movement, and it just feels like a current piece, as opposed to some other brands who are literally just kind of like Tag, who are just taking that design from the 60s, from the 50s even, and just essentially just recreating it with modern materials, with no kind of interpretation, no twist on it.
Yeah. This is cool too because it's almost like Rolex where you have the stainless steel case, so that's pretty traditional, but you have the ceramic bezel.
Right.
So you have a mix in terms of the materials of the watch where you've got, the traditional and the new age coming together. This is nice, actually.
It's
a
a great
lot of
piece.
people would probably say just buy a Daytona, but
Yeah,
I
but
would
not-
actually
at $9,000.
So there's the price point argument, which I think is super valid, but I would also make the argument that in many ways, like the El Primero movement, kind of better than the Daytona movement.
Sure.
Daytona used the El Primero.
Right.
movement.
Right. When Rolex wanted to go automatic, where'd they go? El
Right.
Primero. And that saved the brand. That's a great story. If you guys haven't read it,
Saved
you should
Zenith,
check
yeah.
out Charles Vermont and the story of how he basically saved Zenith when Rolex wanted that movement.
Right.
But that's great. I mean, even like with the suit and the blue shirt,
Yeah.
that
kinda-
works.
kinda
right?
perfect,
It kind of
actually.
works right there. Yeah, it does. I like the silver dial too. It's like that metallic silver is definitely not a vintage El Primero thing. That is very modern.
Right.
I like that.
Right.
That's cool.
So I think that is literally the perfect mix of
Yeah.
vintage inspiration with a
Yeah.
modern interpretation, essentially.
You all are quiet. I asked like what you think about sizes. Nobody said anything. Do you have any thoughts on vintage and modern? Anybody?
Do you guys? Yeah, actually, good point. Do you want to see more vintage inspired or vintage toned loom or basically more models that
Yeah.
just pay tribute to old models, or do you want to see brands kind of push it and try and do something new?
And I feel like the faux patina thing is a really hot, like contentious item for most people. Like most people either really like it or really don't. And we've got a Patek here that I feel kind of fits in with the Zenith in terms of the vintage and the modern put together,
Okay.
right? And this
Interestingly,
has
this pulls from a whole range of eras. This isn't just a piece from the '60s and a piece from 2024. This has got '80s inspiration. This has got '90s inspiration. This has got '60s inspiration.
I feel like
This
you've
is
even
this
got
is a
like
wild
the
mix.
20s and 30s because you've got like the Art
syringe hands.
Deco-y shape to the case, the syringe
Yeah.
hands, yeah. Because like the lugs are very angular. They're not like your typical Calatrava lugs, like a 5196
Yeah.
or a 5227 or something like that. So you've got hobnail on the side of the case,
Right.
which like where did
Super
that
80s.
come from,
Come on.
Patek? You think of hobnail as 80s?
Absolutely.
That's interesting.
I'm trying to think. What is the?
That's really interesting. I don't know. Hobnail's not the 80s.
Yes,
is
it is. Well, when it comes to watches,
I guess there wasn't vintage hobnail, right? I guess
Right.
we don't see like a vintage Calatrava with hobnail. But so this is a great mix of vintage and modern, in my opinion, because you have something that's a very modern size. This is 40, I believe.
Yep.
And they ship it now with these composite fabric straps.
Which
you
are
don't even
awesome,
get like a
actually.
gator strap
No,
with it.
You still get a suede one.
Lugs are similar to the 5235. They are. And that watch to me is also one of those Patek being modern, but without trying to be like Richard Mille or something like that.
Sure.
I do agree with you there. It has that kind of angular, faceted look, which you don't get as much with the more curvaceous stuff. But this to me, this is so versatile because if you did put this on gator, it could be very formal. You do get that. What is it, like a light brown suede?
Yeah,
or
that's what I was
something, or
saying. You get
Alcantara.
that calfskin suede.
Yeah.
That's actually awesome on this watch.
But neither of these is like your Patek on a gator strap, right?
No,
like,
I honestly think Gator would
like
look
this
out of
Patek,
Gator would
which
look
we'll
out of
get to in
place
a
on this. I
second.
think this is a nice mix of dress and casual. If I was going to have a Calatrava, I think this is honestly the direction that I would go. It's got so much interest
Yep.
between the dial, the case, like you were saying, with the vintage tone loom, the Arabic numerals, everything. It just it's a really interesting mix.
and new movement with hacking seconds, which one of the things that really surprised me is that people really didn't like that Patek didn't have a hacking seconds. I could care less. Like 3 out of the 4 of my watches don't even have a running seconds. So like
Man,
that
I'm
shows
lucky.
you.
I don't even know if this one's. I don't even know if this is running
Hey,
right now.
speaking of small vintage cardigan.
Okay, so Acosta Valdez says, I think that the trend is still heading towards slightly smaller pieces. He said that some people admire the aesthetic of, the 45 millimeter IWC Big Pilot, but would gravitate towards the Mark series or a 43 millimeter based on wrist presence. And I agree.
I forgot about that 43 mil Big Pilot. That's a good point.
I agree that I'm glad that IWC made that. I still think it's too big, but I am glad that they made a piece that has the same aesthetic, that has this, the same feel in a more manageable case size. And I really like the full size big pilot. I think it's it's an iconic design. I love the way it looks until I put it on my wrist, and then it just doesn't work. So
I'll put this one on my wrist.
yeah, put that one on yours. I think even on your wrist, that will look too large.
Can you check this? Because
Sure.
there was a time where the standard big pilot, I think, and I, as always, reserve the right to be proven right. The standard big pilot was 46, and then the ceramic one, like the old school Top Guns, went to 48, and they were truly like planetary. I think this is a ceramic case, and that's actually the reason we had pulled this was to talk about materials as a trend.
Yeah.
But this also is big.
Yeah. So like the Rodeo Drive and these older ceramic big pilot perpetuals, those were 48 mil, which is just bananas.
So again, looking at it on the screen, it doesn't look. Sorry, we lost the camera. I'm going to try to fix that. Which one?
That one on your wrist right now, Rob, is 46 mil.
This is 46. So they have made the standard ceramic big pilots 46 again, which to me is really good because 46 is good. There we go.
48 and
we're back. Right? I mean, again, I can do it. I totally could. This to me isn't as comfortable as the Panerais. I'd rather wear the Panerais.
I mean, looking at that on the camera right now, even on your wrist, the lugs are still overhanging at the top. Like it just doesn't. I don't know whose wrist this watch is designed for. And actually, to be fair, it's not
I'm
even
not that big of a dude, though. I mean, there's guys with a lot more real estate than me.
But
I
think
this over
no,
here.
Me neither. But
like
I think to be fair to the
feel...
design in general, it was never designed to actually fit anyone's wrist. It was designed to fit over a flight jacket. So it doesn't really. Rob, your wrist is what, 7 1/4?
7 1/4.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It might be like slightly under with it being cold in Boston. It's cold.
You were in the pool.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, something like that. But it's, I've always liked the big pilot. I've always thought it was really cool. But the size of it's tough, and they get really big, thick. They get really thick, which because of the 7-day movement. This is nice because it's light.
It is. All right, so then I was going to say, let's go back to the actual reason why we grabbed that one. We'll put size to bed. We'll leave that. There's no problem there whatsoever. We'll leave that off to the side. We grabbed this thinking about materials and where we see brands going in the future. This year.
Scroll up real quick. Before we get into that.
David B5807 said he can't stick around for the stream, but he's hoping to see it on the YouTube channel soon.
Cool.
So
if you have questions, pop it in. We'll answer them, and you can see it when you watch later on.
Yeah. So materials.
Materials, yeah. And we have seen the white ceramic here. We have now seen, I guess this is tan ceramic? Beige.
I mean, grab that AP and show that guy off.
So we have a third ceramic watch, which a lot of these are dual purpose. I feel like I planned this really well.
If you say so yourself.
I think we lost that other top down.
No, we got it.
So this is the all ceramic AP chrono. And this watch to me is so cool. It's incredibly lightweight. This is a 38 mil chronograph, right?
That one I actually think is the larger size.
No way. This fits me too well for that.
Hold on.
Oh, I'm missing a comment. Can you
go
back?
He was just talking about the big pilot, like I was saying, that it was never actually designed to fit anyone's wrist.
It's like a superhero costume. I love that. Jeff, when does Rolex release? That's a good question.
I was wondering the same
Traditionally,
thing. That's 41, Rob.
This is 41.
Yeah.
Wow. Look at that. Traditionally, Rolex always released, like Basel was April, right? So that was when everything came out.
Yeah, March.
March or April, but
we'll start. We'll probably start seeing rumors and things in about a month, mid February, and then everybody will just speculate wildly for a couple of weeks, and then we'll actually see what's going to happen in March.
I feel like also the shows are really changing, and people aren't holding all of their releases for the shows anymore.
Right.
So.
Oh, interesting. Actually, a little tie-in there. Check out our blog tomorrow. We have a little op-ed piece from someone you guys might know talking about whether the shows even matter anymore. So we'll see.
Yeah, there's been a lot of change there. I feel like we have now tangentized like 3 or 4 times.
We have completely. Materials, Rob. Materials.
Materials. Yeah. So the ceramic thing is very cool. It's lightweight, which is super nice. And then we also we have a Panerai Carbotech here. We don't have any like Richard Mille TPT stuff or anything like that at the moment. So we couldn't grab anything from like that, which is really wild.
It is.
Like the TPT is spaceship stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never held a watch that was that light. When we had, was it a 6702?
Yep. That was absurd,
insane.
actually. Yeah.
So the Carbotech, I'm going to try to show this, but you may or may not be able to see it. Hello, Vintage Watches Forever. Thanks for the wave. The Carbotech is a carbon fiber, and they like make a, it looks like they almost like make this material and then they cut it, and there's this beautiful grain pattern in it. It almost looks like wood grain.
It looks like layers of material has been stacked.
Yeah, like they made a billet and then they like cut the billet or like ground the watch out of it. I don't actually know the process.
Exactly, yeah.
But it is super cool looking. And again, super lightweight. It's like featherweight on this rubber strap.
I mean, to be fair, I really think that Panerai with Carbotech, Swatch Group with Bioceramic, it's just a way for the brands to create a cheaper material, aka plastic, and market it.
Ooh, that's a hot take.
But it's true. It's just plastic, and it's just a cheap material for these brands to manufacture and to use. And I think they try to sell all of us collectors on, these are brand new materials they have all these incredible capabilities, and it's so much better, and it's biodegradable, and it's going to save the whales.
We do see that, right? We see
stuff.
this like trend of sustainability being something people are thinking about, which is kind of interesting as well.
I'm not poo-pooing that part of it. I actually think that works to our favor with buying a watch that's already been manufactured. The material is already whatever, everything has already been spent. I just, I get it. I appreciate it. It's cool. It's great, but at the end of the day, this isn't an earth-shattering development that Panerai made a case out of plastic.
No, but it's still something that is more modern. And you're seeing it, you see it with Debatoon as well, right? Like with their crazy case materials. I'm trying to think. There was another one I had a minute ago before you started being all contrarian, and now, of course, I've lost it.
No.
But, you see, I think there's an interesting mix of watchmakers who are trying to do it because, like you say, they're like, oh, it's lightweight, it's durable, it's whatever. Versus the guys who are just saying, this is really cool, look at what we did. Like the bulk metallic glass thing. Like, what's the real purpose of that?
There's
the
no
Panerai
purpose.
BMG. Like, it's super cool. And I really am interested in it.
Thoroughly appreciate that.
Or if you're a Swatch and you create bioceramic.
That's what I said.
Sustainable.
It's plastic.
Then
right.
The watch has a System 51 movement.
Right.
Which is single use.
Which is single use, and you have to throw it away.
Right. Which is interesting as well. and then, I did it again. I had it, and it's gone now. It wasn't bioceramic. I'll think of it. There's the cheese watch, too. We forgot about Moser. And the cheese watch.
Oh my gosh.
That was a while ago. That was Basil from a while ago.
Yeah,
the case made out of like petrified cheese or something like that.
So that's what I want to see in 2024. More cheese watches.
More
Let's go.
watches made from food, non-sustainable. To me, it's just very fascinating to see watchmakers really branching into materials. And Albert talks about this all the time. It's like, what are they going to do? What are they going to do to make it modern? Because we're looking at this 200-year-old industry, and we have this whole table here, but what on here is really new, right? They all basically do the same thing. They tell you what time it is. Maybe they let you time something, but they're all watches, right? So how do you make a watch and make it new? And so I think the materials are a great
materials
way to
for
do
sure,
that.
Absolutely. And again, back to the Zenith, with the crazy chronographs that they do.
Yeah.
Even Gronefeld for that matter, with their stainless steel movement.
With the stainless steel movement, we didn't even talk about movement materials. Jorn and aluminium.
Yeah.
As they say. He was using aluminum for the case, and I believe those movements had aluminum plates too, didn't they?
They did.
Like the whole thing was aluminum.
Yeah.
And I guess it was.
He does not make that anymore.
There's a reason why it stopped, but it was. You got to applaud him for trying. because what a cool idea to make this watch. And those are also disconcertingly light.
Sure.
Like it's almost scary. But so we had grabbed this for a couple of reasons. And actually, producer Craig even brought up another good one. One of our friends on Instagram commented about the Tiffany blue thing as being a trend. And it doesn't like this movement. Why
I
don't
think
you
you just
like
gotta
this
get it more in the shadow, whatever. There you go.
How about my hand? Does that help?
I think this dangling is not helping your cause.
Oh, is that it?
Anyways.
No, doesn't want to focus on
Craig
it.
mentioned.
Craig mentioned the Tiffany blue, or somebody on Instagram mentioned it, and then Craig brought it up. The Tiffany blue is very much on trend at the moment, right? Everybody's doing like a Tiffany blue dial watch. See if we can get that in focus
even
for
wider
you all.
than that. Actually, one of our good friends and clients also commented, just saying that having to have a new colorway or a new colored dial every single year, it feels like, where every brand all of a sudden, last year every brand had to have a green dial. The year before, every brand had to have a salmon dial. The year before, every brand had to have a blue dial.
I would be happy to see go away.
That's what we were saying, exactly.
I'd be really happy if we didn't expect a different colored dial every year. Like if we didn't expect they did this watch, it's how long do we have to wait before the green one comes out or the blue one or the red one or whatever.
Right.
Like I think it would be great if they did that when it was something special.
Yeah.
And they had a reason to say like, this is a colored dial either for this purpose or this club or this retailer or whatever. Like to me, that would be much cooler. Like, I don't know. I guess I've just seen too much of it, maybe.
I think we have. I mean, I'm very much of the less is more mindset as well when it comes to models. There are plenty of brands, who need to take a long, hard look at their websites and look at their model offerings and cut things pretty dramatically. And like you were saying, really only release something when it means something.
Right.
Don't just again, don't retread an old design and just slap it with a coat of green paint or whatever. It's just give me something a little bit more special that means a little more. And if they reduce the number of pieces that they're doing that with, it becomes more special when that piece drops.
Right, because if you make everything special, then nothing is special.
Right, it's the Omega model.
It is the Omega model. It's so funny. Everything we say, it's like, man, that's another trend.
Yeah.
Like, and Panerai is guilty of this too, that everything is limited.
Right.
Right, where it's like, oh, there's only 1,500 pieces, but it turns out there were only 1,500 pieces for that particular year.
Right.
For the
it's not actually limited.
P serial number, there were 1,500 pieces, and then the next year there were another 1,000.
It's like at the end of every year. At the end, they don't actually tell you how limited it is at the beginning of the year, and at the end of the year, they're like, how many did we make? 1,500. Limited edition of 1,500.
Oof. Oof.
All right, serious though. Okay, so I think another trend that we saw kind of get turbocharged over the pandemic was the new kind of obsession with indies, with brands that seem to kind of come out of the woodwork and just kind of pop up overnight. All of a sudden, they were like the hottest thing, and everybody had to have it.
Yeah. And
I think we've already seen this happening. The market as a whole is really starting to move away from, the Mings, even the Gronefelds, the De Bethunes, and
I wouldn't say move away.
No.
I would say
I don't mean I mean attention. Attention is being moved from those independent brands, and it's being refocused on blue chip, historic brands at this point.
Well, I think there's an accessibility question there, right? So the two that we brought, we have a couple to talk about this, but the two that I have here that first came to mind are these two. So we've got a blue watch from a house nobody's ever heard of, and then we have this Parmigiani, I believe this is a Tonda PF, right? This is one of the newer ones, and this is got a big date and the small seconds at the bottom. So when I first started working here at European Watch Company, this was a 20K watch. It was a 20K watch all day long, and people often bought these at a discount. this was not a watch that everybody loved. I remember seeing photos on the internet of Brad Pitt wearing one of these, and the Watch You Seek comments underneath talking about how it is such a weird Patek. What's with this tumor on the side? And nobody really likes that watch. Yeah, blah blah blah. And then we get into 2021. Actually, no, 2019. Sorry. And things start picking up and getting crazy, and then you can't touch these for under 100. Then you couldn't touch them for $125, $150,
and on and on and on.
They hit 200,000, which is insane.
Yeah.
And then obviously that started to relax. So you got to a point where this was unattainable, and then you have new entrants to the field, like this guy, the Parmigiani Tonda PF.
Tonda
right?
GT.
Tonda GT. Sorry, this is a little bit bigger. The PF I think is the slimmer one. And you have not a direct competitor with the Nautilus. They, it's not like they have, copied it or something like that. But it's very much, it's an integrated sport watch feel. And actually, I think they did a great job with, it doesn't like the shiny. Sorry.
Yeah,
there we go. They did a great job with the integration. Like that looks really good. It is a very nice bracelet. Mm-hmm. The links give a lot of flex to it, so it'll fit you really well. It has a nice movement in it. It's good watchmaking. Like it's a good brand all around. But if they had launched this during, any other kind of normal run of watches, it would have been met
2016, 2017.
Yeah, it would have been met with like, oh wow, that's a cool contender, and it would have been great, and they would have been available and things. But this was launched at a time when you couldn't get APs and Pateks and things,
right? And
so there became an awful lot of hype around this brand and these watches.
Yeah,
and you saw it with Chapek.
Yep.
You saw it with Parmigiani. Mm-hmm. You saw it with the GP Laureatos even. Watches nobody looked twice at for years and years and years suddenly were desirable and going over retail.
That was just an availability.
And it's right. It comes down to availability and accessibility. So I think there's definitely permanence here because it's a good watch. It's well made. It offers you something a little different if you want that style, but you don't want the usual suspects. But I don't think we're in an area where people will compare this and a Patek.
Not anymore.
Or this and an AP. I think that's kind of over because for a while they were.
Yeah.
For a while they were like, this is just as good or this is made better or whatever. Right. And I mean, we could argue these things all day because they are subjective to a point. But I think that we're seeing now that, and don't get me wrong, these are not affordable. A Nautilus is not an affordable watch.
No.
Right?
Yeah, but neither is that.
Yeah, I guess the sliding scale of how we define affordable.
I almost think even just
keeping
money or affordability out of it, it doesn't even really play much of a role, I guess, in determining what the market is focused on.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting how there's all of these different kind of dynamic factors that go into it.
I do think it will be a good year to buy a Parmigiani Tonda GT,
yeah.
or any independent at this point. I think they're going to be out there. You're going to be able to get them.
The Parmigiani Tondas, the Chapek Antarctiques, the Romain Gaultier C's, which is a strong one. Your favorite, the Ferrier Sport Auto.
I really like that watch.
I know. Those have gotten more accessible. And actually, the one we had a lot of interest on that watch.
We did. Yeah, that moved quickly.
We had a lot of interest on the Sport Auto. We just had that Chapek split. We had a lot of interest on that. Mm-hmm. So it's not that these brands are going away.
No, by no means.
But I think it has to be something somewhat remarkable now. They can't just make an integrated watch with a blue dial and everybody loses their minds anymore.
Right.
They have to actually bring something to the table. Like they have to bring, you can't get an Aquanaut or a Nautilus with a big date like that and this kind of symmetrical dial. So if you want something like that, you're going to go here. I
will say that this very small big date at 12 o'clock kind of does drive me crazy.
Yeah, somebody else agreed with you.
Like,
I think our friend Acosta Valdez said the same thing.
Yeah,
he said that 12 o'clock
That's obnoxious. It's too small. Either make it bigger or put it over to the left or something. I don't know.
He also asks, how often do you guys see Grubel 4C?
We've seen a handful in the past, 5 years?
Yeah, it's a watch that, because of the price point of those, it's not the kind of thing people trade with high volume.
So it's funny, I can't remember, was it Steven who was in here? So came into the shop, you know, he was showing us some pieces that were new models. I can't even remember what it was at this point. It was I think it was a sapphire case.
So Stephen Forsey had on his wrist the GMT, the original Tourbillon GMT, which is like probably their signature watch.
Right.
And then the gentleman he was with
Who's
had
his US
that
rep?
full
Sapphire, wasn't it?
sapphire cased. I can't remember what it is. It
Doesn't
might
even
have been a
matter.
Technic.
So we
It
were
might have been
just
one of the
chatting with
Technics.
him. You know, it was great. It was great guys, really fun to kind of get their perspective on you know the pieces that they're making and the brand. And I don't even remember who it was, but someone asked him, you know, like who do you guys see as your competitors? What watch brands do you guys see as your competitors? And they looked us dead in the face and said, watch brands. There are no watch brands that are our competitors. Our competitors are private jets and yachts.
And
So-
he wasn't saying
and he wasn't
it from.
being
It wasn't like a pompous,
No.
egotistical thing. I like, you know.
He was literally saying that people that are buying his watches are basically saying, do I want to buy this watch or do I want to upgrade my PJ this year? Like that is the
that's
decision
way.
that they're making.
It's because of that price point. It's not that he doesn't compete with any other watch brands. It's that for him, they're looking at the luxury market in total, not just saying we have to build a better watch than Patek Philippe or whatever. Because obviously they're not doing anything even remotely close to Patek.
No.
So it's like you wouldn't look at the two of those and say, which one am I going to buy? A GMT, you know, that crazy Grubel GMT or a Patek Perpetual?
Right.
You wouldn't do that.
It doesn't happen.
Doesn't make sense.
But do I want to get that new Sunseeker yacht or do I want to get that Grubel? That's more
Down
of a decision
payment on
that
a
happens.
G6.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Very cool watches. Incredible artistry and technology.
amazing.
In those things.
I think
Really
one of
awesome.
the other trends that we kind of see, we talked about seeing happening, and we kind of already referenced it, so grab those two APs, Rob.
Yes.
And I think this is honestly the perfect representation of kind of where we see the market going this year. You know, moving away from, Dave, you want to go to the overhead real quick?
I just wanted to make the hands
Oh.
pretty and wind it up.
Moving away from the piece on the right and moving more towards that piece on the left. You know, again, the Royal Oak is always going to have its place. It's always going to have popularity. You know, I love mine. I wear it all the time. But I think the insane hype around that model, it kind of played itself out, and it may have kind
the
of...
two together. You know what? Is it the tag again?
I think so, dude.
I was so good for a while, and now it doesn't like me anymore.
Go lower, go lower.
Go
You gotta
lower.
go lower. Lower.
Get low.
Lower. Okay, so this Jules Audemars Tourbillon, which I'm going to pull up the details on it because I don't want to mess this up, but for the longest time, these pieces have languished in the market.
While you're bringing that up, I'm just going to say this is a Jules Audemars Tourbillon chronograph. So obviously, if this camera decides it wants to,
You got to go lower, my friend. You got to go lower.
focus-
All right. So
There we go.
for those playing along on Instagram, if you're still out there, in the comments, let us know without looking at our website what you guys think a rose gold AP Jules Audemars Tourbillon chronograph costs. What we are asking for this piece, and I will be shocked if anyone even comes close. Because, like I said, again, these pieces have been overlooked and just completely ignored for years and years and years now. And it's criminal. Yeah, okay, so JRF 1975 saying 99.9. George
But
Pronan.
right above that,
Yeah, George, that's not fair. I feel like you looked, my friend. But okay, so we have this piece listed currently on our website for $56,800.
which is nuts because retail on this was probably 200 grand.
I want to look and see if I can find that real
Look at that.
quick.
That's a lot of
Yeah,
watch.
$222,000 was the original MSRP.
That'd be a good price NYC watch, dude. I think it would totally be worth that. 105 Acosta Valdez. It should be a 100K watch.
Well, that's the thing is I think that this watch should, or that watch, whatever, should absolutely be in that 75 to 100K range. You know, maybe 105, 110. Like it's incredibly capable. It has so much history and complication and just artistry in it. And I'm not taking away from the piece that you have on your wrist right now, Rob. But the 41 millimeter ceramic AP Royal Oak chronograph.
So same question, everybody. How much is this watch?
I'm gonna pull it up.
How much
right
is
now.
a 41 millimeter? This is a plain chronograph, no tourbillon. no split second, standard automatic chrono, cool black ceramic rotor, which is neat. We like that. But it's a plain black ceramic chronograph.
It's, as straightforward as it comes. It's a Royal Oak with a chrono.
85, 250. Ah,
if we took the average in between those two, yeah, New York City watch, dude. There you go. All right, so we're asking 132.5 for the ceramic, and it's really just because it's ceramic,
and you can't get it. It's just because you can't get it.
Correct.
You can't have this. You can have this. Why?
I mean, and I understand. There obviously
get it.
But there needs to be a premium.
Here, you want to switch up?
It makes sense that there's going to be a premium on something that that is difficult to obtain. But again, for reference, a 41 mil
eye-watering. I agree.
A 41 mil steel Royal Oak chrono goes for around 50, actually under. So if you're cool paying almost triple for ceramic, then go for it. But I don't know. I think that Jules Audemars and these crazy, complicated, precious metal masterpieces that are selling for fractions of what something like that AP sells for. The Royal Oak sells for. I think that the days of these kinds of pieces continuing to fly under the radar are definitely limited. Because people are kind of waking up to how much. First of all, how much value is there currently at the current prices? And, as more and more people, kind of get on that bandwagon, these will continue to come up. So I do think that that style of piece from, even the late 90s, early 2000s through 2010 kind of that just have been ignored while everybody was so focused on sport pieces.
Yeah.
Those are going to explode.
It's about time. I agree 100%. NYC Watch, dude, as far as I know, the movement, other than the rotor, is exactly the same. I believe it's the new in-house caliber that they're making that goes in the Royal Oaks and in the Code 1159 chronos, but they added the ceramic rotor to match the rest of the case, which I think is very cool.
They both have the 2385 with the 70-hour power reserve. They're identical except for cosmetically.
It's a stunning watch.
It is.
I really love it. I think they hit a home run with this thing.
I think this version though is the only one that I could ever that I would ever even see myself wearing, owning, whatever. The colored ceramics are not great. Like the blue, the white. They're so in your face. They're so flashy. The black has. Sorry, I'm looking at this.
Yeah, I was reading that too, and I mean, I think it is later because we're about to end in a few minutes.
Yeah.
So a lot of Grubel chatter today, which is interesting. Thoughts on the production increase on Grubel 4C, Balenciaga Sports, and the impact on resale value?
I don't think that's going to have any effect on their resale value whatsoever. I still think they're going to be incredibly difficult to obtain, and the MSRP is still going to be so astronomical that it's going to be unobtainable for a lot of people. It's that market, it's very easy to say that they've increased their production when they were only making a handful of pieces to begin with.
Of course.
They could quadruple their production and still only make like less than 50 pieces a year. You know what I mean? So
I think also because Grubel is such a small brand and there's so few pieces out there and so few of them change hands, it's for us on the dealer side of the table, it's much harder to price.
Yes.
And it's much harder to figure out what that true secondary market value is for that watch because you don't have a lot of data.
I mean, I think what we've noticed as well is that at that echelon, at that level of piece, the guys that have the money and want to buy that piece, they have or they can establish that relationship directly with the brand. So it's a very unique person.
Yeah, Grubel doesn't make you buy a two-tone date just in order to get on the list.
Exactly. Yeah, right. They make you buy a G6 before you can. But no, really, it's very different when as opposed to like Rob is saying, like Rolex or any of these other more accessible brands when compared to Grubel, when you're playing at that level, you can have your people set up a meeting, or you have access just by by virtue of your position in life, you have access. So it's very unusual to have someone who wants a Grubel who cannot buy it new, because you're not going to be getting, it's not like on the secondary market you're getting it at some insane discount. So there's not, there isn't necessarily a monetary driver to getting it on the secondary market.
Yeah.
The only reason you would do it is because you don't have access to it elsewhere, Lost camera.
Richard Mille still at that price point, yet have this crazy resale value.
Yeah,
I
and
think
they are a brand where you can't walk in and get whatever you want. Like, even when you have the access, like, you have the ability to buy their pieces. So that's really interesting.
I think Richard Mille, just the way that they have structured their company, their business, the way that they have tried to connect with clients is very different than how Grubel does. Grubel does it in a much quieter, more private way, whereas Richard Mille is on every athlete's wrist. They're sponsoring every high-profile sporting event, every exclusive polo match, whatever it's, cross-country, downhill, helicopter, skeet shooting, whatever. They're involved in it. So, but they're there, you know what I mean? So they've been very smart about how they've developed the image of the brand and made it that luxury item that those people want to have.
I'm sure that it is a very conscious decision by Grubel Forzi not to do that, right? Sure. Not to try and do that Hublot RM thing of leading through endorsements and placement and things like that.
I think RM has done it brilliantly, though.
Oh yeah, masterfully.
And
absolutely
they produce a lot more related. When you compare it to Grubel,
right?
But it's still a very small amount, so it's still obviously a very controllable image.
And the funny thing is, it's not like Richard Mille has to rely on that, because there's a lot of watchmaking there too. There are other brands that use that route because there's not much behind the curtain, but in the case of Richard Mille, I think that there is a lot there.
Yeah, I agree.
As well.
Way more than people think, actually.
I think that's it.
I don't know if we actually talked about trends. I don't know if we predicted anything or talked about what we liked or didn't like, but
I made some
somehow we talked for an hour about a whole lot of
that
watches.
Are filled with forethought, and you shot them all down.
I don't know if I don't know if I would agree with that, but thank you guys for joining us again. We always have a good time. Thank you for interacting with us. We love it when we don't have to talk to each other and we can just talk to you guys in the comments.
It's better that way.
If you guys have ideas of what you would like us to talk about or things that you want to talk about, please let us know, because we're running out of ideas. No, I'm kidding. We want to, we want this to be a reflection of what you guys are interested in. So.
And we like topics that you guys want to engage in.
Yeah.
So the more that you guys participate, the more fun we have. Because obviously Justin and I know what each other think. We work with each other every day. So it's great to find out what you guys think and to get your perspective on it. Again, we do these to connect with the community. We're glad to do it. And we look for you in the DMs. Send us ideas.
Slide into Rob's DMs, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Bye-bye all.